You're listening to Grown and Growing with Sonia Hamlin. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I am very excited about today's episode because not only do we have a special guest, we are also talking about one of my favorite topics. Money, 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 money. Money. Yes, we are talking about all things money and finance. I love learning about money, not because it allows me to buy more things or acquire more things. It actually has nothing to do with that. I actually love learning about money because I want to know how to best maximize my income, my savings, my retirement, and my spending. And if I dig a little bit deeper, I actually like learning about money a lot because it helps me feel in control. And I want to make sure that I am employing the latest and greatest in trying to keep, my money in check. Because there was a time in my life where I was very out of control with money. In my early 30s, I dug myself into a very deep hole that took me years to get out of. It might have involved a house and a housing bubble or something like that. But by the grace of God and Obama, I was able to dig myself out of that hole, and I am in a much better place with money. I'm very proud of myself in that regard. Today, I'm talking to Meltrice Sharp. Meltrice is a CPA, a certified public accountant, with over 20 years of knowledge and experience in accounting, tax, management, finance, and business consulting. Meltrice is the managing partner at Creating Leading Enterprises consulting firm, where she helps small and mid-sized businesses with their tax, accounting, payroll, and business consulting needs. In her spare time, she is the founding member of Women Creating Wealth and Impact, an organization that addresses the education, knowledge, and access gap with women in finance. Meltrice and I have a great conversation about all types of things finance. We talk about where to start if you're looking to get control of your money, how to prepare for a recession, and really what drives her to focus on creating wealth for women, why that's important to her. So take a listen. I think it's a great conversation. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another episode. Today, I am very excited about my guest because we're going to talk about something that's very close to my heart and that I'm interested in, personal finance. I have Meltrice Sharp here with me. She is a certified public accountant, a CPA, and she is also a managing partner for Creating Leading Enterprises. That's CLE for short, which I love. Anybody who knows me, if you know, CLE is also very close to my heart. She has over 20 years of experience helping small and mid-sized companies with their taxes, accounting, payroll, business consulting, and all of that good stuff to help them set up a good foundation for their business. But today we're talking about something that she does also in her personal life, which is help women with their personal finances. So welcome, Meltrice. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonia, for having me. I am excited about this. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart as well. So I'm just excited to start the conversation.
Awesome. So I'm going to start with a question about CPAs that I saw in an interview that you did. You said that 1% of CPAs in the United States are Black. Is that still true today in 2022?
That is still true today in 2022. There's an organization called National Association for CPAs, and Robert Smith, who is the same philanthropic guy who gave a lot of money to, I believe it was Morehouse College.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He gave this organization a huge grant so that they can really impact that number, because we definitely need more people of color in the industry. So hopefully we'll see that number rise shortly, but yes, that is an unfortunate fact.
Yeah, I was surprised at that. I mean, I used to work at an accounting firm. I worked at Grant Thornton. It was my first job
Oh, wow.
out of college. Yeah, so I worked in the tax division. So I know a little bit to be dangerous. I didn't work for one of the big five, but I do know a little bit about accounting. And I didn't know that about Robert Smith. He's just out here doing all of the good work, because I know he also gave Morehouse money to pay off their student loans. I think it was Morehouse, their student loans.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like he spoke at a commencement, and he gave them enough money to pay for everybody who had, I guess, debt at that time. I could be wrong about it, but I just remember the news articles and everything about it. I know he donated a significant amount of money for those students.
Yeah, and actually setting them up to have generational wealth for their own families, because so many
Yes.
students are have so much student loan debt. We actually have a crisis.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to, that's actually a good segue into us talking about personal finance. So you do personal finance, or you do accounting for work, right? And then you also turn around and do it in your spare time, helping women. So why did you feel like you wanted to use your skills and expertise to help women create wealth?
Well, I'm a woman, and so my own personal story really started with struggle. Growing up, I grew up with a mother who raised her two biological children and two nieces on a waitress income. And so, kind of just watching her struggle, my mother has always been really good with money. She could make $1 out of 15 cents, but the fact that she only had 15 cents, and kind of just watching that struggle and living in the inner city, and going to sleep every night saying I got to do something to, one, make sure that I'm not living in the inner city when I become an adult, but two, hoping that I can set myself up successfully where I can remove my mom from that environment. And so watching that struggle, and then growing up and becoming an adult, and as an accountant, making really good money, but making poor choices. So I didn't feel like I was making good money, although externally it looked like I was, because I was making so many poor choices. I was still struggling. And at that time, I was married to my first husband. And although we were in it together, it still felt very lonely. And then, that marriage fell because often marriages fail when you have financial issues, right? And so that marriage fell for that reason and some other reasons. But then as a single mother, so I just really have such a passion and compassion for women. One, I'm infuriated by the fact that women are still treated like low-class citizens. Like we're having discussions about overturning Roe versus Wade. We're still making 80 cents on a dollar to our male counterparts. But when you look at statistically, 85% or more of all consumer spending is controlled or influenced by women. Right. Women are holding the weight of the world on their shoulders. If you were to ask if you were to ask 10 women how comfortable they are about making major financial decisions, 2 out of 10 of them will say they're comfortable. The rest of them aren't that comfortable with making financial decisions, but yet there's so much that's on our shoulder. And, I know that in just a decade, $30 trillion of wealth is going to be transferred, and women will be getting it. So it's time for us to gain the competence, gain the comfortability, regain our power, right? Walk in it, take over the world, because we've been controlling it in the background all this time. I'm sorry, I'm getting too passionate, but it's just, it's time. It's time for us to walk in our power.
I agree with that. One of the reasons I started this podcast is for that reason, to empower women who look like me, Black women in their 40s, to lean on each other so that, we can make better decisions than the generations before us, right? Better decisions than we made in our past. And, like I said, personal finance is an interest of mine, just personally. And I know that when women have wealth, the world is a better place, because we do so much more with it than men do. We invest it better. Women are better investors than men. We are more philanthropic with it, right? So we give more with it. So I do think it's time for women to not be scared of, of their finances. I also heard another interesting stat just today, actually, that even when women are the breadwinners, they still do most or 90% of the household chores. They do more of the household chores when they make more money. And I found that interesting because, even though we still, we bring home the money, we still do, we are doing, our boss is at work, and then we come home and still feel like we have to overcompensate for making a lot of money by doing all of the chores and doing more of the cooking and more, and so we're burning ourselves out. So
yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah, so you hit on a whole bunch of things. Like one of the adages that I like to say all the time is, when you teach a man, you teach an individual. But when you teach a woman, you teach a nation. Because we don't hoard our wealth, we don't hoard our knowledge, we don't hoard our experiences. We generally will use that to nurture the world and nurture the people around us. So I agree with you, but I see that playing out in my own life. Well, I used to see it playing out in my own life, right? So I think it's just a sense of guilt. My daughter and I were talking earlier about mommy guilt. And even as a wife, there's a sense of guilt if you're making more money than your husband, or there's a sense of obligation that although you're making more, you still have all of these things that you should do in order to be an effective woman or wife, or there's the risk that your husband might cheat on you or leave. And so we have all of these things that we've been brainwashed and conditioned to think in the back of our head, directing our actions. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about that, because I really want women to start to advocate for themselves and really understand the power that lies right within them and walk in it. And so I tell people all the time, like, I have retired my cape and I'm comfortable with retiring my cape. So ask for what you want and start saying no to what you don't want to do. And I have started to do that. It took a while for my husband to adjust and adapt, but he did. And so when I used to work 10, 12 hours a day, come home, I'm like, oh, I still got to cook. I still got to clean. So now I say, I'm not cooking today. And then I might say, hey, husband, can you come in here and sweep and mop? Because I wash the dishes, but I'm not going to also sweep and mop. So it's just about being okay with saying no, which is a full sentence, and not allowing societal norms to dictate our actions. Just being okay with the fact that you're a good person and you're going to treat people good and treat people kindly and do what you can do, but you can't do everything.
Absolutely. Well, you're in the right place. Okay. You just summarized all of my all of my previous podcasts in 30 seconds. So no, I definitely agree with you about that. So the podcast is really geared towards women who are over 40. I'm 44. So that is my core audience, right? Women who are over 40, Black women. And so when you think about personal finance, what should women over 40 be thinking about money? How should they be thinking about money in this stage of our lives?
I think the first thing is they have to develop a plan. I tell people you cannot start to think about anything until you develop a plan and put it on paper. And if you don't have a plan, which is essentially your budget. So you've heard the adage, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So that plan for your finances is your budget. You're literally putting it on paper, what direction you want to take and what your end goal is. And a lot of times people will say, well, I don't have to put it on paper because I bank online. Well, that's the same thing that people will say that don't do well with diets. You have to put it on paper. And so starting with that budget, if you get in your car and you start driving, you're going to reach a destination, right? But if you tell your GPS where you want to go and you get in your car and you start driving, you're going to reach the destination that you want to reach. So I would just tell people, I mean, women that are over 40, sit down and really spell out what it is you're trying to achieve in the next several years of your life. Is it you're trying to get out of debt? Is it you're trying to pay for your children's education? Are you trying to save a lot of money? Or are you trying to start a business or invest? Like, what is it that you're trying to do? And then understand what all your tools and resources are to help you along. And so that is your budget. Dave Ramsey says if you don't budget, you look up and you're asking yourself, what happened to my money? Right? So you're just telling your money where to go. You're just getting in the driver's seat of your money. That's all budgeting is. So you have to start with a budget, and then take it. The rest is going to get you to where you go. If you stick to your budget, do what you need to do, you will reach your destination.
Right. And so I like that you started with budget, because it, if you obviously, if you can't control what you're bringing in, it's hard to build past that, right? It's hard to add on certain things about that. So, and I was going to ask you, when you're in your 40s, how should you be focusing your money? Like, what should you be focused on? What should be your goal? But you really talked about a number of things. It really depends on what it is that you want to achieve. If you want to stay for your kids to go to college, if you want to start retirement, if you want to focus on retirement, that's where you focus. Outside,
it's a customized approach. I'm sorry, it's a customized approach. There's no one size fits all. And that's where I think people go wrong when they do try to like box this thing up. Like my mentor often tells me when people say think outside of the box, he says there is no box. So get rid of the whole box idea. There is no box. You create your own path, and only you know what type of money you're bringing in. Only you know what you can afford. Only you know what you can afford. And only you can prioritize what's important to you. I can sit up and tell somebody, don't spend this, don't spend that. And I do it all the time. Women will come to me and say, I'm struggling. I need help. Please help me. And I'm like, I can't help you until we look at your budget, until we create a budget for you. And then we create a plan, and you have to hold yourself accountable to this plan. So if they don't do that, then you're never going to achieve your goal. So you have to start with that plan.
Do you advocate for, I know you mentioned Dave Ramsey, who is all about eliminating debt, no credit card, very strict plan, right? I used to follow Dave Ramsey a lot. But I want to know your take on it. So in your 40s, what's your take on debt? Should you be, is there good debt? Is there bad debt? Where should you be focusing on in this point in your life?
I would say I subscribe to a lot of Dave Ramsey stuff. I do think it's very aggressive, but I don't have a car note. So I say the older you get, you should focus on creating legacy, creating generational wealth. And it's very difficult to do that if you are bogged down in debt. So I don't believe that any debt is good debt. It's debt. I do believe that you can leverage debt to achieve your overall goals, whatever those goals are. So if your goal is home ownership, unless you got an angel investor or a whole bunch of money sitting somewhere, you can't just purchase a home cash, but you're purchasing an asset. Assets help you create wealth. So as long as you're purchasing that asset and you're paying it off on time and you're impacting your credit in a positive way, then although I don't think debt is good, I think that purchase, that leveraging debt is good. But a car is a debt because it's not an asset. It's a liability. It's something that will like depreciate soon as you pull off the car. Out of the car lot. And so, but if you need a car and you have to get debt, that's something that you want to pay off quickly as possible. So there are instances where you can leverage debt to help you achieve your goals, but you want to think about what you're leveraging debt for. Are you leveraging debt to pay for a steak dinner? that you'll be paying for 2 years from now, and the steak has already like digested in your system? Right. Are you leveraging debt to pay for clothes to impress people you don't like? And 2 years from now, you're still paying for those clothes that you don't even have anymore, you can't fit. Like, what are you leveraging debt for? If it's to advance your goals, if it's to advance where you're trying to get in life, and your family, then I say use it if you're using it properly. But if you're not using it properly, if you're just, doing it to keep up with the Joneses when the Joneses are broke, then I'd say think twice about it.
Mm-hmm. And so when you think about where we are in our economy, we recently the economy was booming, not even 6 months ago. It was great. And housing market was high and was booming. The prices of real estate were getting, were astronomical. Honestly, it was crazy. If you were trying to buy real estate. And now we've kind of taken a turn. The stock market was booming. It was high after high after high after high.
Sure was, yeah.
And now we are dealing with inflation, right? Yeah. Food is more expensive. Food is very expensive.
It's too bad.
I'm like, for the people who shop at Whole Foods, how are y'all living? How are you still affording to be here? Because the prices are astronomical. Gas is high, right? We're hearing about a student loan bubble bursting, whatever that looks like. We are hearing the stock market is going into bear territory or becoming negative. And so we're hearing the R word, the recession, we're heading into recession. So how should people be preparing if we are going into a recession? How should we be, thinking about our money? How can you maximize what you have when the cost of everything is still going so high?
So first of all, that's a great question. And I would be giving the same advice even if we weren't going into these hard times that we're about to start to experience. And it's living below your means. Some people will say live at your means. I have always been the type of consultant that tells people to live below their means. This is really a time to really define the difference between your wants and your needs, and really only start to spend on your needs and start to save and put money aside. And it's a time where you need to start looking at how often am I spending money on lunch? How often am I spending money on these miscellaneous things that aren't important, and really start putting money aside for a rainy day. Almost 50% of our country could not handle a $400 emergency if it becomes due. And that's, I think it's because the way that the credit card companies market, right? It makes it easy to spend money that you don't have on things that you don't need. And it's just getting real with ourselves and saying, I need to live below my needs, my means. And what does that look like? What sacrifices does that mean I need to make? What do I need to get rid of? I just was listening to a show the other day, and they were I think it was a radio station or something, but they were talking about how now people are like moving in together because things are so tough. And so one of the things I told people was like, when you're looking at your budget and you're looking at how much of your income you're spending in each of your major categories, you might want to downsize, right? So it's having that real tough conversation with yourself and making those tough decisions, but those tough decisions is going to sustain you through tough times.
Right. I'm going to pause on this. It's saying we have 10 minutes left, and it used to be free. Oh, brother.
Sometimes it'll like let you, sometimes it'll tell you 10 minutes and then it'll say, we're going to give you more time or something as a gift or something.
The first time this has never happened. So let's just keep going and we'll see what happens. I have 3 more questions, but so should we be saving more than 3 to 6 months of expenses right now? Or should we be preparing, for the sky to fall? Like, how much do you think that how much emphasis on saving should we be doing now?
I say as much as you can, not just now, but anytime. So, and I guess when I think about savings, I do think about an emergency fund, which is like that Band-Aid if you get a cut. So in finances, that cut is my tire went flat, my hot water tank burst, that my mother needs something, it's that quick emergency that you need money for. And then you need that 3 to 6 months. I say now, amidst what's happening, you need at least 6 months, because you're going to start seeing maybe businesses close. You're going to start seeing layoffs. I'm sorry. You're going to start seeing some very tough things. And you want to just have that cushion, that comfort that you'll be able to sustain your family for a while if anything were to ever happen. 80 to 90% of women will experience one of those major emergencies. Recession is one of them, but illness is one of them. Divorce is one of them. So I always, saving is really important, but retirement is important as well, right? So if you just stop preparing for retirement and throw everything in savings, then that's not the right answer either. And our economy have ebbs and flows. I do think it'll recover. It always does recover. So I wouldn't say like panic and start to take all of your money out of your retirement savings, because retirement is planning for your older self, and your older self will come knocking at your door eventually. And you don't want to say, oh, I spent it all when I was young, I don't have anything for you now, right? We still have to think through what our long-term goals are. So I would not say, stop investing and start throwing everything in savings, but I will say, everything that's extra, stop spending on your wants, throw that in savings, make sure you at least have 6 months worth, and then start to increase your investments.
So when we talk about one of my episodes in the past that I did, probably the most popular episode I did, was about sending my kids to college. And I did this whole episode about how I'm not paying for them to go to college, because for a lot of reasons. And the main reason is because I feel like I'm behind in my retirement. I feel like there was a time I made mistakes in my 30s. I didn't start investing in my 401k like I should have, or as much as I should have. And so now I feel like okay, I'm 44. I feel like I should have, or the experts saying I should have X amount, and I don't. And so, to me, I'm like, I would rather put more money into my retirement savings than save a bunch of money for my kids to go to college. And so my fix for that, right, is just not to say, oh, guys, you're getting student loans and that's it. Is to, encourage them to get scholarships, encourage them to pick a cheap college, encourage them to, make sure they're picking careers that can, sustain them after they graduate, teach them financial literacy, even at their young age, so they don't make a lot of the same mistakes I've made with student loans or with debt or anything like that. But saving for my retirement was the thing that really prompted me to make that decision. And I feel like, if I were to pass away before that, if I were to pass away after that, and the money is going to be theirs anyway. And so if they, have a little bit of student loans or something, I can help them pay it off or whatever. But everybody's not me. What should people be doing if they feel like they're behind, not in retirement, but in saving for their kids to go to college? So if you're my age and you have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, what can they do to start saving for college if they're behind?
So I tend to agree with you in terms of retirement, because you can't borrow money for your retirement, but you can borrow money for your children to go to school, and your children can borrow money on their own. So while most people don't want their children to incur a lot of debt to go to college, the reality of it is if they retire broke, there's no saving you for that. But if a kid don't have enough money to go to college, there is some help for that. So I tend to agree with you that if you're behind in retirement, you need to dump a lot of money in retirement. There are other, I would say, tools and vehicles that you can invest in that may not be like a college plan, but it may be like a permanent insurance plan, like annuities that you can draw down tax-free, that you can use for your kids' college. There are other ways. I would say it might be time for you to think about adding another revenue stream or two other revenue streams, or investing in something that's going to create passive income, like real estate, when that was a good investment, and it still is, but when it was a reasonably priced investment, maybe a franchise. But I would not suggest that anybody sacrifice preparing for retirement. I would just say figure out a way to generate more wealth so that you can do both. Because they're both equally as important. But always remember, if you can't generate more wealth, your children can get that loan for college. And you might not like it, but if you start to invest in your retirement and you start to generate more money by investing in other vehicles, you can help them pay off that loan. But if you end up without having enough to take care of yourself when you can no longer work, then what's going to happen then? Because you're not going to be able to get a loan anymore because you don't work anymore. Right. And so it's about figuring out what that, striking that right balance for you. But I always feel like our generation, we have removed the struggle away from our children. But for me, the struggle is what gives me the drive to do what I do.
So you're saying remove it. Let's talk about that. So you're saying our kids have it too easy nowadays.
I mean, I think so. I just feel like, and I battle with this in my head too, right? Because I went to school with trust fund babies, right? But when I'm like, I'm working my butt off, and this trust fund, she's like, oh, one of my peers was like, oh, I'm just going to work for my father. He has an accounting firm. When I graduate, like, she didn't work hard in school, right? And so I worked hard in school. Why? Because I knew that when I was going home to the inner city to live in, very, very low means. And I was trying to prepare a lifestyle that was better than that. But when our children don't have any struggle, it's like, sometimes you take things for granted or you take advantage of your situation. So I feel like it's okay for them to take ownership in their education. And if you know that your mom is saying you need to have good grades or have some sports scholarship to help me with your education, and you fail to do that, then where's your ownership in your education and your future? And why is it my sole responsibility to do that? Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they have to get skin in the game. Like yeah, for sure. See, guys, it's not just my opinion. An expert agrees with me. Okay. So I'm so glad you said that about kids and saving for retirement over paying for college, because I talk all that big and bad stuff, but sometimes I'm like, am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? But ultimately, I know that I am, because I want to retire with dignity, and I want them to be able to live their life without having to take care of me when I'm no longer able to take care of myself. So Thank you for validating me.
You're welcome. You're more than welcome. But again, there's no one size fit all solution to this thing called life and this thing called financial literacy. It's about what your individual goals are. It's about what you've agreed to with your family and your spouse, and what you think you need for your family. And I would never tell somebody else, that's wrong or you shouldn't do that. If that's what them and their family came up to, then that's what you pursue. So, like I said, I subscribe to what you subscribe to. Like, I will help you And if I'm financially stable, I can help you.
Yes.
But if I'm not stable, I cannot help you. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, you still need to help yourself. Like you said, you still need to have skin in the game.
Absolutely.
And so that means getting good grades. You can get a scholarship, or that means saving your money, or that means, whatever that means for you. I think that children should have a skin in the game when it comes to their education.
Okay. So let's flip that, right? So some people are behind in saving for their kids. And I just confess that I think I'm behind in saving for retirement. Is there anything, I'm trying to invest more, save more. Like it's really, I feel like at 44, I am, obviously closer to retirement than I've ever been. It feels more real to me.
Yeah.
And it sort of makes me a little panicky because I'm like, I feel like I don't have that much money saved. So what should you do if you feel like you're behind? How should you set up your life? I mean, we're 44. I mean, we still have time. I do plan to retire, probably not at 50, but I do plan to retire. Retirement age is, I think, 67 now. I don't think I want to work till 67. But there's still time. So what should I be doing to maximize my retirement savings?
When you get that increase, if you get that increase amidst this turmoil we're in, throw it all in your savings. You're not used to having it anyway. You're already living without it. So don't think about it, throw it in your savings. We talked about creating other revenue streams. That's more important now than it has ever been, simply because of inflation, everything is going up. And even amidst like this turmoil we're in, there's always opportunity. So when you think about the .com, time when people were optimizing those opportunities, find out what that opportunity is that really aligns with what you do and what your talent is, and make sure that you're looking for ways to create that additional revenue stream. Franchises. I tell, I have a couple of friends that they have franchises and they go to the franchise conference, and they say there are no handful of Black people. So we are not optimizing even on that opportunity to create a different revenue stream. Make sure you have the right insurances in place. There's long-term care insurance. There's, all of these different, there's a variety of different types of insurances that you can purchase where you can generate revenue, cash surrender value, annuities. You can do all of that. And it's, not that expensive to do it. It costs less than, I think, what is my insurance for it's like $51 a month or something like that for one of the insurance policies that I have. So you can look for different ways to secure your future that's not that expensive. And I'm going to go back to this whole need versus want thing, because it seems very elementary, but if the discipline behind it was what people were employing, then we wouldn't be in such bad shape as Americans. It's discipline where you're determining your want versus need, and you're not spending money on wants, and you're dumping all of that extra money in your savings and in your investments and all of that type of stuff so that you're prepared.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to plug is that women shouldn't be afraid of the stock market, of investing. So that's one of the things in 2016, in January, I was like, okay, the one thing I've always wanted to learn is the stock market. I always want to understand it. How does it work? How do I feel more comfortable in it? And I basically joined a group, and it helped me understand the stock market more. And I love it. I love investing. Now, I'm a careful investor. I don't trade.
You're conservative.
Yes, I'm very conservative. I don't trade. I buy some individual stocks, but mostly I do index funds for myself.
That's a safe bet.
Yeah, but yes, because look, I can't lose the money. But I definitely think that, I would encourage women to take the opportunities to learn about the stock market, because, there aren't a lot of Black people who invest as well. And that is where you can create a lot of your wealth over time if you subscribe to long-term investing. And so I would, how
Yeah,
do you feel about
definitely.
the stock market? I mean, it's, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, how do you feel about, there's a lot of talk about the stock market and stocks, and you had Robinhood, and then you had AMC, and what was the other one? The other one that went up. So there's a lot of interest in the stock market, but probably not in the best way. There's crypto that people keep talking about, NFTs, things I don't really understand. But what's your best simple advice for people to dip their toe into the stock market?
I say get a finance advisor.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, you can do like the Robin Hoods and all of that and put a little bit of money in there. But, even as a CPA, people will say, oh, I have QuickBooks. I can do my accounting on my own. You can't watch a video and do what I do. Right. I went to school for 5 years. I got my graduate degree. I studied hard for my certification exam. I am constantly doing continuing education to continue to hone in on my skill. So I don't care how much a person dive into it as, I'm watching a video or I'm being a part of that group. You're going to learn enough to know enough to be deemed dangerous to manage a professional and know the right questions to ask, but you're never going to be that professional. So I think people are scared to engage a financial advisor because they think, one, they may not be able to afford it, or it's just something that scares them. But a financial advisor is going to help you get on the right path. A financial advisor is going to manage your portfolio so that you can achieve your goals. Now, is there some work with finding the right financial advisor? Yes, it's like dating. I might date that guy A and I don't like him, right? He's not meeting my needs, or and I have to date. I have to ask the right questions. I have to ask for references. I have to, you have to do your diligence to make sure you have the right financial advisor. I don't think it's wise for someone to try and invest too much of their money on their own. And then I also don't think it's wise for people to get scared about what's happening and start taking all of their money out of their long-term investments, their 401k, their 403bs, and different things like that, because these are long-term assets, right? You're going to invest in equities, bonds, different things. These are long-term investments. They will ebb and flow. They might dip, but, they might retract, but, they're going to come back. The stock market within itself has a history of averaging over 12%. Mm-hmm. So if you're keeping it to hold it long term, it will bounce back. I don't suggest anybody take their money out in fear. Can you mitigate your risk by taking maybe some of your money out? Possibly, but would I suggest you do that without speaking to a financial advisor? Absolutely not. Other things that you can do that are outside of a financial advisor is like invest in a Roth IRA. Mm-hmm. So you can invest up to $6,000 a year, and that's a separate investment that could be, different than what you're doing with your employer. So there are other things that we can do. But yeah, definitely my best advice would be to engage a financial advisor quickly to make sure that you're on track to achieving your retirement goals, your financial goals all together. Because like my financial advisor is like, okay, we have retirement taken care of. What are some of your more immediate goals? Mm-hmm. Right? So your financial advisor can also make sure that your portfolio will meet even your immediate goals, needs of your immediate goals. So I would say get you an advisor.
Yeah, and I think the thing about getting a financial advisor is like you said, making sure you pick the right one. Because I know there's a fiduciary. I don't know what the opposite of a fiduciary is, a regular person, but a fiduciary who is supposed to put your needs ahead of their own, or ahead of the profit that they could make. But also, they can also help you Actually, what I was going to say is I think that should, they should be asking you what you want to achieve and not just pushing product on you. They want to find out.
Yeah, you have some financial advisors that work for a company, and essentially, and I'm not saying they all are, but ultimately they're paid to sell you their company's product. And then you have a broker that can sell you a package.
Right.
And you can buy the products from anywhere, right? So that's the difference. And so I tend to go with somebody who's going to sell me a product a package that says, okay, Meltrice, your goals are A, B, C, and D. If you do 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can achieve these goals, but here are all the different products that you can purchase, and it doesn't necessarily tie to their company. Right. So that is the difference. So I prefer a broker, but it just depends on what your goals are.
And it's funny, I want to go back to one thing you said about taxes. I stopped doing my taxes a long time ago, but I read an article, and you can confirm if this is true or not, that the IRS typically audits low to middle class people more, because it's easier to identify. It's easier to get them to come in for an audit, because wealthier people are more advanced at hiding their money and doing different techniques to shield their money from the IRS. And so the flip side of people doing their taxes on their own is that the IRS is scrutinizing your taxes more than they scrutinize people with more money than you. Is that true? Do they do that?
I don't know that I would say that's true. I mean, the IRS has systems that help them identify, what they're going to audit. Like, some of it is random. Mm-hmm. It is just completely random. But then they have systems that create red flags. Mm-hmm. So I think if I were to say any part of that is true, the red flags that we create when we don't have the skill set to perform a job is probably what's triggering that audit. Mm-hmm. So that's probably why they're being audited, because, so for example, like if you have, the forms that we get every year when it's time, we get our W-2s, we get our 1099s, whatever those forms are. The person responsible for sending the individual that form is also responsible for sending that same form to the IRS. Right. So if the IRS has a number that's different than what the individual is reporting, that's going to trigger an audit, right? Because the system is going to bump them up and say, oh, Meltrice had a 1099 that said $1,000. On this tax return, she has no 1099 income. You're about to be audited right away, right? So those are the things that will trigger it. And typically, people who have less resources will try to do it on their own. Mm-hmm. And that's what would cause that to happen. That's why they get tripped up. Not be okay. Yes. But I treat the IRS like the mob. I'm like, I don't want no problems. Here's your money. Oh, yeah. We don't want no problems. We don't want no problems. But most problems are solvable as long as you are being honest. Mm-hmm. And you have all of your information and it's complete. So most of them are solvable for people like me and my colleagues.
So tell me about your the group that you're creating, Women Creating Wealth and Impacts. So tell me. So we talked about kind of like how that's my passion, women and wealth, and all of these trillions of dollars of wealth is transferring to women, and we just don't feel comfortable making major decisions. So Women Creating Wealth is an organization that I started just to give women a safe platform where they can share their vulnerabilities about finances and get the support that they need in a non-judgmental environment, where they can create the competencies and the comfort so that they can impact legacy and create generational wealth. So we had our inaugural Women's Finance Conference in April, and now we're about to do a book club where we're going to be reading books
all about finances and coming together and really talking through them, addressing all of any questions and stuff that they have. We're going to do happy hours where we have a guest speaker and we talk about finances and share our success stories and share our failures and get the help and support that we need. Because sometimes we learn more through other people's successes and failures than we do our own, because we can step outside of our situation and see it from someone else's point of view. We're going to do, fun little events leading up to the next conference, which is next year in April.
Okay. So be sure to tell us about that so we can make sure that we promote it. So how do people become a part of this group? So we're I don't know if we're coming out of COVID. I don't really know. It changes every day. But is there a way for people to join virtually if they don't live in Cleveland? How can they participate?
So I am working on that virtual, because when we just did our last conference, a lot of people did reach out to say, is there a virtual option? How can we join virtually? We're very interested. So I am definitely working to figure out how to create a virtual platform for people to enjoy and experience what we'll be doing. It's really, really tough because I'm a hands-on person. I want to touch and feel people. I want to be able to look in their eyes. Even at our conference, it was so amazing how vulnerable women were. Women were crying and really sharing their vulnerabilities. And, we're all out here doing our best. Right. And a lot of times, and I tell people, even as a CPA, as I work with businesses, a lot of times business owners will come into my office and cry, because this is hard work, right? It's sharing your vulnerabilities. It's getting naked in front of somebody, right? And that person is telling you, oh, you got a dimple there, you got a dimple there. And so I understand how heartfelt this is. So I like to be able to hug people and touch people and let them know that they're not by themselves. And that's really hard to do virtually. Mm-hmm. So, but I need to figure that out, because I do want to be able to share this with the world. Or maybe we'll just do the conference in different cities. I don't know.
Okay, now people will travel for a conference.
Yes.
For a good conference. So just keep us posted. I would definitely be interested in hearing more about that next year. So thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you for sharing your expertise.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.